Hello and welcome to the second of our series of artist talks for the Kenojuak Ashevak Memorial Award shortlisted artists. My name is Heather Campbell. I'm the Strategic Initiatives Director for the Inuit Art Foundation. I'm originally from Rigolet, Nunatsiavut, and I currently live in Northwest River, Labrador. Although we are all joining remotely from across North America today, I would like to acknowledge the land on which the Inuit Art Foundation is currently located. It is on the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the original owners and custodians of this land. Today, this place is home to many, including a diverse urban Indigenous community of Inuit, First Nations, and Métis. On May 19, 2023, the Inuit Art Foundation announced the shortlisted artists for KAMA in conjunction with the opening of Ananata Unikangi, Our Mother's Stories, their group exhibition at the Winnipeg Art Gallery, Wag Kamayuk, which runs until November. This is the first year that KAMA includes a special exhibition for the shortlist, thanks to the exceptional support of RBC Emerging Artists. In addition to the exhibition, each artist shortlisted for the award receives a $5,000 cash prize. This evening, we have the pleasure of hearing Taaqtumi Partridge in conversation with the shortlisted artist, Gayle Uyagaqi Kabloona. Taaqtumi Partridge is an Inuk artist, curator, and poet, originally from Kenojuak, Nunavik, Quebec. She's currently the Associate Curator of Indigenous Art with Inuit Art Focus at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Before joining the AGO in 2022, she served as a director of Nordic Lab at Gallery and adjunct curator at the Art Gallery of Guelph. She has also worked as communications director for Utiqtuq Cultural Institute and editor-at-large for the Inuit Art Quarterly. Gayle Uyagaqi Kabloona is a multidisciplinary artist from Ottawa, Ontario. She works across media, including knitting, ceramics, and prints. Kabloona's work is inspired by the art of her grandmother, Victoria Mamnguqsualuk, and the colors and bold shapes of her great-grandmother, Jessie Oonark, and often incorporates traditional Inuit stories told through a modern feminist lens. So welcome, Gayle and Taaqtumi.
Thanks, Heather. So, as Heather mentioned, I'm Taaqtumi Partridge, and I am hosting this conversation with Gayle today. So happy to be here with you, Gayle. So excited to talk about your work, and I'm so excited for your career. Just keep watching all the things that you're doing, and just so happy.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here too, and yeah, glad it's with somebody that I know is less nerve-wracking.
Yeah, okay, we can be silly. So first of all, shortlisted for a Kenojuak Ashevak Award. What does that mean to you?
It's incredible. I think, I don't know, I'm so happy to get to this point, and it's been like from making the long list to making the short list, like that much, the period of time I've grown, I think, into the position, I guess. Like,
yeah.
Last time there was a Kenojuak Ashevak Memorial Award when Taaqtumi Duffy won, I wasn't even an artist yet. So it's been like straight up learning curve and like getting used to doing all of these professional art things. And then when it was time for this award, like this time, I was debating whether I should like go for it, or I was thinking like maybe I'll just wait till next time and I'll have like more like things in my portfolio, and then I convinced myself to go for it. And
and here we are. What does Kenojuak's work and legacy mean to you?
Well, I think that her art is probably the most widely known in like amongst Inuit and beyond. So she's very like, and I think that's because she had a really distinct visual style. Like when you see her work, you know that it's Kenojuak. And then, yeah, such like a broad amount of things that she made, like within that style, and it's all recognizable. So I think I aspire to have like a really distinct style that appeals to Inuit and lots of other people just by looking at it.
Okay, so like that's amazing. And I want to go back to the beginning of when I first encountered your work. So I was like, it was lockdown. And I was like flipping through Instagram, and then I saw, I think, one of your mugs, or maybe it was a print, and I was like, who is this person? I got very excited.
Yeah.
And then I went on your page, and then I saw you do all these things in different media, like knitting and ceramics and prints. And what I really, really adored was that you had small prints at affordable price points. And I think that that is something that a lot of other Inuit probably appreciated at that point and still appreciate, because, contrary to popular belief, Inuit also like to have Inuit art. It's not just for sale outside of Inuit culture. So I'm just wondering about, when you sort of felt that you were moving towards being an artist, like, or how have you always had creative practice, or, sort of, what's the story?
What's the scoop?
What's the scoop?
I always liked making things. It didn't really matter what. But I never really felt like an artist. And then I was around the time that my grandma got sick, I started doing fiber crafts and crocheting and knitting, and just to like take my mind off of things. And then I found out that I really liked planning projects and deciding on colors and like messing around with contrast and like figuring out what colors look good next to each other. And liked the meditativeness of having something that I could work on with my hands. And it was many years after that that I learned like ceramics and printmaking here in Ottawa. And it was actually like a big leap into thinking that I was an artist. It was like some kind of switch that just was like, oh no, I'm not that. Because like we grow up with like these amazing artists, and it's like, it kind of seems like they've always been that good and they've always been incredible. And you're like, I could never, call myself an artist because I'm just beginning, and it's like this scary thing. So I think the first thing I had to do was figure out like why I was feeling like that, and then just kind of dip my toe in first and say like, okay, let's just like call myself an artist because like I am doing all these art things. and went from there. And the little like 5x7 prints were some of the first things that I sold. And I didn't even think that it was like something worth selling. They were just like little things that I was making at home because I wanted to try out my block printing kit that I had bought during the pandemic. But then I was giving them to friends and stuff, and they were so happy and they're so excited to get these little original artworks that I had made. And I was like, oh, okay, well, maybe you know what? They are really nice. And been nice to have something like small enough that it's easy for other people to access and like feel like they're like supporting me, and like I appreciate getting my art into people's homes. And it's something that I really value, is having like affordable art for people, because I don't think that like everything should cost like $5,000 or like $10,000. Like most of us can't afford to buy something like that and have it in our homes.
Yeah. One thing that also really attracted me to your work was the kind of very clean lines, very minimalist kind of style. Like, and it sort of is in everything that you do. It's like there's some very defined shapes and defined faces, and And then multiples, just I'm crazy about multiples. So like when you do like a whole bunch of them together, I just like, oh yes, that's the stuff. Speaking of like really iconic Inuit artists and who are, world recognized, your great grandmother was one of those artists, Jessie Oonark.
Yeah.
And your own grandmother as well, Victoria Mamnguqsualuk. So I'm wondering if like that idea that you were like, oh, well, I'm not an artist. I'm wondering, like, it seems like a great heritage to have, but at the same time, I wonder if that was a little bit part of the daunting, the fact that the idea of being an artist was daunting because you have these, I mean, not only them, also in your extended family, but those two most famous ones.
Yeah, definitely. I think like my grandma was incredible at like doing these huge, like I don't know, 7 foot long, but embroidered the whole way. And like every stitch was immaculate. And she had traveled all around. I think one of them had met the Queen at some point.
Mm-hmm.
And their art is just everywhere. And like there's big pieces of Jessie Oonark's in Ottawa. And it seems like now that I'm an artist and people like, I don't know, like recognize I don't know, they just want to tell me about like my grandma and great grandma's art. It seems like it's even farther than I thought it was. But it was funny when I was in Guelph reading about their styles and getting really into like the nitty gritty. In one of the books, it said that Unuk's sewing style was messy because in terms of Inuit seamstresses, they were kind of bigger stitches and they weren't completely uniform. And it was like the book said that she was so into the big picture, into like the big shapes and the big imagery, that she didn't really care about like the craftsmanship as much.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, from an outside perspective, you would never notice. But then if you're like
No.
into wall hangings, then you would definitely see.
Yeah. It's funny, I've heard that described as the handwriting of the artist. It's like the little imperfections are the sort of the part of the signature of the artist. So like even if there are imperfections, they're always kind of uniform to each other, and so it's sort of like signature.
That's cool.
So lucky for me, I got to be a little part of you creating your first wall hanging, at least for exhibition. So you came down to the Art Gallery of Guelph, and it was just a really, this is like second or third time I had to actually meet you in person. It was so awesome to see you connecting with your grandmother's work and your great grandmother's work and your other relatives' work there. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that experience.
Yeah, so that was a huge moment for me. Taaqtumi came and saw me at my ceramic studio and wanted to talk to me about something, and I didn't know what yet. And then she asked me if I was interested in working bigger. And at this point, I had never had my artwork in a gallery. I had never exhibited art anywhere. I was just making things and selling them on my website. And I was really happy just to be doing that. But yeah, she asked me if I was interested in working bigger. And I was like, yeah, I have tons of ideas and I want to do tons of things. And then she offered me a creative research residency at the Art Gallery of Guelph. And and then I went down to Guelph and looked in the archive, and it was mind-blowing. It was so cool to see all of these artworks together. There were a lot of framed pieces that you could just pull out and look at them. And it was a lot of Baker artists, which was kind of neat too, because there's a lot of Kingite artwork around, but this collection was really Baker Lake focused. And like they had my great grandmother's sketchbooks, which was amazing. Like I saw a drawer marked Jessie Oonark sketchbook, and I was like, what? Mind blown, and went through like every single piece of paper and got to see these drawings. And it wasn't really like a sketchbook. It was like a book filled with lots of this size perfect artworks, because people back then didn't sketch. They were just like, this is what I want to draw. It's done. It's how I want it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know, lost the question there. So I got too excited.
Well, just talking about the experience. Yeah. So then you worked on your first bigger wall hanging. And I know that you researched specific Inuit stitches. And I wonder if you could share what you found out about that.
Yeah, definitely. That was my first wall hanging ever, and my first
Yay.
embroidery project. Yeah, I've been looking for the book since, but I've only seen it there in the library in Guelph. It was specifically about wall hangings, and it had a section about embroidery stitches and the kinds of stitches that like Inuit artists used, and then also how they learned them and what they did with them. And the woman who had introduced like standard kind of Western stitches to the Inuit seamstresses was surprised how quickly they picked them up. Shouldn't be a surprise, but it was. And then she described how they kind of like altered them to, I don't know, like to be used more efficiently or like in their own way to create specific stitches. And then there was one that I've seen many times in my grandmother's wall hangings, and it's kind of like a kind of like an ivy or something. And then I figured out that that was a variation on feather stitch, but I don't know if I've ever seen that type of stitch in like Western embroidery. So yeah, they just like picked it up, ran with it.
Yeah. And then you put that in your own work, right? That same
Yeah.
stitch.
Yeah, I really wanted to put that in my own piece. And yeah, it was really cool to learn the stitches. And I like just looking at them, I tried to recreate them, and then I came back, I think, to Guelph. And then the next time I was looking at the same wall hangings, and I was like, oh, I did that wrong. So it was a V shape. So I had just done like one stitch and then another stitch. And then I saw on the wall hangings that it was actually just a one long piece. And then it was tacked down with another stitch at the bottom. I had to take everything out and redo it. There were a few different things that I had to be like, oh no, this isn't quite right. I need to take it out and that would be proper.
Yeah. So there's like meticulous attention to detail there. That's what I am so fascinated by with that. Like you're just so dedicated. And I find this in like all the work that you do, you're so dedicated to making it right to what you want it to be.
Yeah.
Is that stressful?
Kind of, yeah. I'm a little bit hard on myself sometimes. And I was listening to you and Billy talk last week and about like how when you have a material and then you're creating and you kind of listen to the material and like transform it into what it wants to be. And sometimes I have those moments, but sometimes I'm like, no, you're coming with me and we're doing what I want.
So I wonder about that with like ceramics, though, for example, in clay, because like that has got to be a really tricky material.
Yeah, it took me a long time to figure out how to work with it properly. And it's mostly patience and like knowing when the clay is at the right dryness versus wetness to do what you want it to do. Because if you try and make like a specific shape and the clay is too wet, it'll just like slump.
Yeah.
Or like if it's too dry, it'll crack. So it's a really tricky material to make what you want it, like to manipulate it how you want it. But what it's just about consistency and moisture content. So, and then I got a heat gun so that dries things up quicker, so I don't have to be as patient.
Smart. So what inspired you to work with clay, and especially thinking about the faces that you put on the clay mugs that you make?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit? Because I remember you said something about the faces being kind of like from your family's heritage.
Yeah.
Creative work.
I think when I moved to Ottawa, I just wanted to learn lots of different things, and there was lots of things that were available. So I took like wheel throwing classes at a pottery studio here, and I don't wheel throw anymore. I don't know, it's its own thing, and I left it behind. There's some mugs. I think Uyagaqi, who took that photo, might be watching. But yeah, so the faces. So I was used to seeing like artwork by my grandma and my great grandma, and they did a lot of depictions of women and strong women and women's faces and women doing things. And then I saw a print by an ancestor named Luke Anguhadlak, and he drew men's faces. And that was kind of unique to me because I hadn't seen it in like my female family members' artworks. And I loved like the simplicity, but like the style in the way that he drew the faces, because it's like a mouth, but then the nose bleeds into the mouth because it has like a little mustache, and then sometimes there's a little tiny goatee. And it was funny too because it's just so, like just a couple hairs. And I liked that the women all had facial tattoos too, so that was great. And then I did like the grandparents, and it's a man and a woman, and I called them grandparents because like when women's faces were tattooed, it was like before the missionaries arrived, and then when they arrived and said, oh, if you get tattoos, you're going to hell or something, people stopped getting tattooed. So then eventually the only people who had tattoos were old ladies. So then it was kind of like, oh, only old ladies have tattoos. But I'm glad that like the tattooing practices are coming back.
Did you hear stories about tattoos like from your family members?
Yeah, I think it was a long time ago that the last person who had tattoos passed away. And then when I got interested in tattooing, I wanted to ask my grandma about the regional styles, because the only things that I had learned were from Alethea and the documentary that she made, but that was really Baffin based. So when I asked my grandma about regional styles, she drew this design, but then she laughed at me and said that, oh, are you going to get face tattoos like the ones that go like this next, thinking that it was going to make me look like an old lady or something.
Oh, so even she associated with old ladies.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is the wall hanging that we were talking about that you did for Guelph. And to me, it looks kind of like a self-portrait. But you have tattoos, speaking of tattoos, or the figure has tattoos.
She does. So the hand tattoos are the same ones that I have, but at that point, I didn't have them yet, or like very close to the ones that I have. And then the face tattoos are the ones that my grandma was laughing at me saying like, oh, we're going to get face tattoos. And so I was like, I don't have them, but I can put them on my wall hanging.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really mean to make it a self-portrait, but when I'm doing faces, I usually need a picture for reference just to get like the proportions right and stuff. And the easiest way for me to do that is for me to use my own face. So she just kind of happens to have my face, but it works well because this is like the fox wife, but if she was living outside of like the toxic gender relationships that are in that story. And it's like the independent woman kind of aspect fits well.
So it's your retelling of the story of the foxwife from the famous Kivyuk tale, which involves Kivyuk withholding the foxwife's help so that she has to stay in human form, and coercing her into marrying him.
Yeah.
But in your version of the story, she's taken back her own control of her life, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and she can still transform from fox to human and back again whenever she wants, but she's not held hostage or any of the other things that he does. He's he wants to swap her with a couple of wolverines and she doesn't want to go, so he puts her in the wolverine's igloo and says, don't open the door. If you open the door, she'll run away and I'll never get her back. And then they don't listen and they leave the door open a little bit and then she escapes. And then Kivyuk has to go adventuring off to find her. So there's a few instances in like the Kivyuk stories where she didn't get to enjoy freedom.
So I know that your grandmother's work is full of these stories, like so many of her drawings and wall hangings tell these stories as she must have learned them. And of course, they're stories that, Kivyuk stories, especially, that appear across the north, and then different versions depending on the regions. So, she told them as she knew them, and then it's fascinating to me that you know these stories as well. You've learned them from your family. And so it's like, and then that you turn around and say, okay, well, this is what I want to do with those stories. So you're very cognizant of the stories as they have been passed down for so long. And you're relating those stories, but you're also relating the way that you would like them to go now, considering your contemporary feminist point of view.
Yeah.
How do you think that your grandmother would feel about that, or what would she say?
I don't know. I think she'd be happy. She would, I'll just be honest, she was happy with anything that I did. I'm named after her, so she's my avak, so I was spoiled, so I could do no wrong. But my dad is like, I think it would be something similar. Like he just says, oh, my trailblazing panik. And yeah, doesn't really expect anything different, because I think we all in my family have kind of hard heads and go our own way. So I think it makes sense.
Those stories, like as they've been told so many different ways over the hundreds of years or whatever, I think they all had a purpose, and I see that your way of telling stories also has a purpose in this contemporary context. What do you feel that might be? Or do you feel also that they have a purpose and that you are trying to communicate something that has meaning for Inuit in particular?
Yeah, I think like the story, like the traditional legends and stories that I heard have like gendered violence in them so often that it's kind of like a sneaky background noise like to our lives. And I think I just want to call that out and like call it what it is. And I did like get people to discuss like how that's wrong, or like not have it unintentionally in their background. Yeah, that's basically it. Well, yeah, I don't know. I would think, or like I've heard the stories like throughout my life. Like my dad told me legends and stuff. And then like, yeah, it was when I became an adult that I started realizing like, oh, I just told somebody this traditional story, but it's like there's these horrible incidences of like abuse or abuse of power, or yeah, many different things that are illegal. And and then sometimes I saw like images of Sedna like as this all-powerful like feminine force of strength, and would kind of like not really relate to that because I saw, or like I like her background story is full of like, you know, these things that you wouldn't want to happen to you or anyone that you know of. So I was like, it was like there was this disconnect, and I was like, I need the pieces to line up, and I want a narrative that brings you from like this to this. So I created one.
So this your turbo Setna, that's kind of that, right?
That's a little bit different. I think like I have this idea to do a piece about Sedna before she was Sedna, because she was like a young woman living with her father, and her father was like, I don't want to keep taking care of you, and you need to get a husband and get married off, and the next person who comes you have to go with them. And then she went off, and so I want to do like her, but like in human form, and like just like a hunter who can go and fend for herself because she didn't originally want to get married. But this is something different. This was like a different exploration of like Sedna's fingers were cut off and then they became the sea creatures of the ocean. So I was thinking if all of the sea creatures came from her, then she must be a little bit in all of the sea creatures. So this is a fish that's a little bit Sedna still.
Hey, all right. Wow, that is very smart. I love that.
You can see how my brain goes.
Yeah, this is so cool. So then you created this because I think you must, because at one point we ran into each other and you said you're going to go on like some British expedition ship or something. This is when this was created, right?
Yeah, I was the artist in residence on the British Royal Navy's HMS Protector on its first trip to Canada.
And what was that like? Like, what were you doing? Tell people. Like, I'm sure there's lots of young Inuit artists that like wonder what does that entail.
And it seemed like a crazy opportunity, and I had no idea what it was going to be like. And I asked, like, am I going to be doing like workshops on board, or am I going to do talks or like explain things? And they were like, oh no, you're just on the ship and you experience the ship and then you create art about it afterwards. And I was like, oh, well, that sounds
Really?
Yeah.
Did you get to make friends? Were there other artists, or were you the only artist?
No, I was the only artist, and it was only for a few days. I went on the ship with them from Quebec City to Sydney, Nova Scotia. Yeah, and we just like hung out with the crew there was like movie nights. You could go up onto the bridge and look out the windows and see whales if there were any. It was cool to see how a ship works, and like the harbor pilots come and like steer the ship out of the harbor, and then a boat comes and they switch boats like in the middle of the water. And that was really cool. They did man overboard drills and some other cool like Navy stuff, and it was really professional. And it was, yeah, they had a lot of cool stuff, and they were all really good at it too. And it was fun to see, like the captain was a woman, and she's the first woman captain in the British Navy. And she was amazing at teaching. Because I guess like if you're a captain, your job isn't just to steer the ship or like be in charge of the ship, but your job is to teach other people who will be captain after you. So it was like cool to see her like directing other people to take on more responsibility, and like she had such I don't know, like she was just in charge. She was,
Yeah, that's awesome. So she's a great leader and a teacher. Heather's wondering how you found out about the opportunity for that.
they approached me. So one of like the communications person for the British High Commission here in Ottawa, they were just brainstorming ideas for an artist in residence, and one of the team members had saw me on Instagram or something, or like they might have had a mini print of mine, or like somebody that they knew had a mini print, and they were like, "Oh, what about Gayle?"
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's another way that I think it's so great when you can see artists work on Instagram, for example. Like this is how I encounter a lot of Inuk artists for the first time, and that could be another way that maybe people see your work.
Yeah.
About the like leadership and the teaching, like you're also one of those people in your way. So like when I was working at SAW, you came in and you learned how to use the printing equipment there, and then you became an instructor, helping other people. How, like, have you done a lot of collaborative work, or have you, what are some of the things that you would like to collaborate on with people?
Have I don't know. I've done a few collaborations. It's fun to like just work with other people, even if there's not like a collaborative art piece at the end. Like working with other artists is great, even if you're even if you're each doing your own thing.
Yeah.
And teaching, it's nice to teach. Like sometimes, like if you get in your own head or like in your own zone, like you forget like where you are or something. And in the couple early years, I taught art at Mamnguqsualuk, the Inuit Addictions Healing Center here in Ottawa, and that was great for many reasons. They were all like super supportive, and I wanted to be supportive too. And we just had like a cool opportunity to do art and like connect over something. And I really like how doing art can be really healing and like grounding. So that was an amazing opportunity. What was the last part of the question?
Well, just if you've done collaborative work or you would like to do collaborative work, but also, yeah, teaching, that is a kind of collaboration too. Just thinking about Kenojuak and how she would do work in her tent, for example. And then have you ever seen that picture? Those pictures that Paul Sisikwesis shares on social media, like historical pictures? There's a picture of her like working area in the tent.
Oh, yeah.
And like
dream.
And like I just often think about how like very particular circumstances contribute to how the work turns out, and actually, kind of maybe the difficulties or the restrictions that people have to deal with actually sometimes even make things better or very distinct. You know, you told me before about how your grandmother or your great grandmother would have to not see the whole work that they would do if they would do the big work, big wall hangings. But at the same time, they were working in an environment where they're surrounded by family and stuff. I wonder how that's influenced you, like, you know, sitting with your grandmother as she was doing sewing, or, you know, like when you had the exhibition in Guelph, in the exhibition, we put, you know, your little parka that your grandmother had made when you were little. Like, how do you see those activities reflected in your own work and the kind of circumstances that, you know, making art in your home have created for your work?
I think it's really nice when everything comes together or like fits together well. And I like that I'm able to be there for people if they need me, but like my work is like a little bit flexible in order to accommodate that. And like when I'm working on a wall hanging, I'm just sitting on the couch sewing and watching TV or like hanging out with people, and then you put it aside when it's dinner time or something. And that's exactly what she did. But she sat on the floor. She had a little mattress that she sat on the floor and sewed, and there was like kids and babies and stuff like running all over, and it was like it's really opposite from how I picture I don't know, like male European painters that are like, don't touch that, it's something or like that have a really big divide in between like their lives and their work, or like their family and their work. I'm really glad that it can be like together, and that's how that's how I want it to be, and how I like I wish like I wish I had more time to do like personal projects too. Like I want to sew a calicook or like make my boyfriend a hunting parka, and like I have all of this Kiviot yarn that I got on my trip to Greenland, but I haven't had time to knit with it yet. So I like that like there's projects that you do for yourself and your home and your family and your loved ones, and then there's projects that you do for like elsewhere, or like yeah, it's the same kind of creative energy that goes into both.
So this is like, just for me, this is just so iconic. Can you tell about this? It's just so, it's so Gayle and it's so awesome. And how big is it? Please tell how big it is.
I love this one. It's 7 feet long and almost 5 feet tall. It's like all of the lines are embroidered. The white part is a big piece of wool that I cut out, and then the black pieces at the bottom are holes that I cut through the fabric and sewed so that it wouldn't flap, and then the white dots at the top are circles that I sewed onto the black background. It's so fun, looking at it. I made that last summer, and unfortunately it was on a deadline, so I had to be sewing in like July and August in Ottawa, so it was like 40 degrees probably, and I was sewing a big black piece of wool. I got commissioned to do that by Natalie McNamara, who does the retail art collection for Canada Goose. And I based the image off of a painting that I did really early in the pandemic that I don't think very many people have seen. But I was, stoked to make it a wall hanging. And like, this was much different, I think, than the first wall hanging that I did. So I had like this idea that I wanted to see how it would come to life. And I'm happy with how it turned out, because I wanted to do, like, it must have been from doing the frame, the orange frame around the first wall hanging, because I would have thought that it was like a picture frame, like you would have two pieces and then two pieces and you would sew them at the corners. But then when we were in the archives, I saw that it was just one big piece and the middle was cut out of it. So I must have been thinking about that and wanted to do just one big, huge piece of white and have all of the things connected to it.
Mhm. And so what is the story of Many Hands?
These are like I think like handmade things, like hands are in a lot of my work because of the craftsmanship that I like doing and that I come from, and the ease that I think that Inuit have creating. And yeah, just like how good we are at it and how like it creates technical like clothing that's really beautiful at the same time, and then art pieces that are incredible. So it was like kind of a celebration of all of the things that we can make and that we make. And they all have traditional tattoos, and the dots are like, I heard that dots are family members, loved ones, like represent or like children. So, and I like the broad, they represent life. So like life, people that you love. So I had those dots and then like just the negative of the dots for balance around them.
So this is up on a store in London now?
No, Las Vegas.
Oh, Las Vegas. Oh, I guess I have to go to Las Vegas. I never had that. I never had the idea that I'd want to go to Las Vegas, but I want to go see it. And then it's up there permanently, or well, it's permanently part of their collection.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know how long they'll keep it there, but their store in Las Vegas just opened last year. So I guess it'll be up for a while. And I made it specifically for the space. Like Natalie just told me what dimensions that she wanted. And then I created this like specific piece for it. And then there was another piece from another artist that was black and white that is on like a neighboring wall, but it's smaller. So it was kind of needed to coordinate with that one. So I did black and white.
The things that you've done are like often quite different from what I've seen other Inuit artists doing. So like did you do like, was it Canada Post something? You've done these, even the British residents, you've done this thing where you've had the art gone to Las Vegas, where Celine Dion goes. It's so cool to me. What other kind of stuff have you been doing? Like just, because I'm thinking like if there are Inuit listening to this, I want to, have people understand that there are different ways to do things and you always follow your own path, and it's so cool and exciting.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it happened, but it is really cool. I did the first, like the Inuit section of the first Truth and Reconciliation stamp last year. I did wallpapers for Google Pixel that I think were available worldwide for like anyone that has a Google Pixel phone. One of those artworks is here. It's the square one with lots of colorful faces.
Yeah.
That one. I don't know. I have something big coming out in 2 weeks too.
I was going to ask you. Okay, so I can't ask you about that. I understand that that's probably a secret, but like, what are like some like dream projects that you would have?
I would love to go to the Venice Biennale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. That is not a small dream. Yeah. Dreaming big.
Just, putting it all out there.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
And have you done public art? Because I think there was at some point people were mentioning.
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I did some artwork for the Agriculture Canada Indigenous Lodge, and it's kind of like a mural, but it's not really public.
Yeah.
I think some of the like the digital stuff that's like with Google Pixel or something like that seems almost public, but kind of
Yeah.
like a corporation, but it reaches lots of people. I don't think I've done like actual public art.
Could you talk about this one? I love this one. I love the different shapes and how they interact.
Yeah, this is a big woodcut. And her name is Melina, the sun goddess. It's another one of my traditional legends that are retold through my hard head. So the legend of the sun and the moon is that she's repeatedly touched in the night, and then she gets soot from the kudlik and smears it on the person's face so that she can find out who did it. And then it turns out to be her brother, and she runs away with the light from the kudlik, I think, and like runs into the sky and becomes the sun, and then he's chasing her and he becomes the moon. So I did this version where she wakes up early in the morning and starts the kudlik, which brings the light and brings the new day. It's much different vibe of the story. And that's the kudlik behind her, the black part with the flames, and then the rest of the circle is, like, signifies the sun. And she has the Taaqtumi, the little kudlik poker. And this face, I used a different reference, Avery Kinainak, from Pang, but she lives in Iqaluit now.
She looks very self-assured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good.
Yeah, I think you really captured what it was that you were trying to communicate with that one.
Thank you.
So I wonder if there's something that you wanted me to ask about that I didn't ask, or you wanted to talk about. Like, oh, I wish you would have asked me about that, because I know sometimes when I get interviewed, that happens.
I don't know. I can't think of anything right now. Is there anything else you want to talk about?
No, I'm just excited about your career, and it's so fun to see the things you do. And I really appreciate that you like to share on Instagram, because then I get to see. I know you also make really nice earrings. I have some of your earrings. I guess one of the things I'm always curious about, because I love it. I love like mixed materials and just like people working with all different materials, and not, it's great to like focus and like really concentrate on one specific medium, but also you are a person who works in different mediums, whatever. You want to talk about that again? I sort of talked about it earlier, but like maybe more specifically about using different materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at the beginning of my career, it was really useful because I could diversify what I was selling and what I was offering. And like if I didn't have time to do one, then I could kind of fill the gaps with another. But I think I'm reaching the point where like each medium is getting so busy that I'm kind of overwhelmed by needing to like think of, oh, how many boxes of clay do I need for this thing that I want to do? But I also need red duffel but I also want like red glaze. So I need to order that. And so it's a little bit hard to manage with inventory, but I really like being able to work in different things, like how projects come to me. It just kind of like they just appear kind of in my head, and I'm like, oh, I wouldn't need to do that.
Yeah.
Knowing how different types of materials work is really useful in bringing my ideas to life. But yeah, getting a little difficult to manage.
Yeah.
You
need an assistant.
That would be great.
One question from Uyagaqi. How do you preserve or replenish your creative energy?
That's a good one. I've been feeling a little burnt out recently, actually. Just like forcing yourself to take time off. Like I get all of these ideas for projects and then they end up taking longer than I expected. And then I seem to be busy all the time, but forcing yourself to take downtime, taking care of your body is really important, which is like hard sometimes, but like I think like active rest is really nice. Like walking, biking, anything where like I'm moving but not doing anything with my brain like helps a lot. And then creating things for me or for my people, basically. So not depleting all of the creative energy on outside projects, but still keeping a little bit like to myself, or like baking or cooking or just like creating that has nothing to do with like the art is my job section.
That was such a good answer. Good question, good answer.
It kind of
Here's
my life. It's, I think, sorry, just like one last thing to say.
no, keep going.
I think taking care of myself is the full-time job, and making art is kind of the second part, because if I'm not doing well, then I'm not doing anything. So like keeping a handle on the simple things, but like eating well, sleeping, drinking water, exercising, like the boring things, but like it's really important. So yeah, doing those so that I can do the other big stuff.
That's really good advice or idea to follow. Glenn Gear. Hi, Gayle. I'm a big fan and I love your use of black and white in much of your work, the play of negative and positive spaces. How do you navigate working on more small, intimate works and larger pieces? Also, have you thought about mural work and the possibility of collaborating on larger scale artworks with other Inuit artists? Asking for a friend, Glenn. Glenn being a person who does murals.
How do I manage? I think the small things come more easily to me because I can just focus in on it. But the big things are usually just like enlarged small things. So I don't actually go into working on a big project like what are the small pieces that make up the big project. It's just like, okay, the canvas is this big now, and I want a big, huge thing taking up this much space. And I actually, when I'm doing a big project, I usually sketch out what I want beforehand and make a pattern based on the smaller sketch that's just blown up, or like use a projector. So I usually work small and then just enlarge. And I would love to do murals and collaborations and stuff. That's actually one of my goals going forward, is doing more self-directed stuff. I am lucky that I get a lot of projects offered to me, but it's kind of, it takes me in a direction that I haven't decided for myself. So I would love to choose my own direction more going forward.
You gotta get a grant for a self-directed residency. I know people who can help you. Heather Campbell's asking, what are the pros and cons of your main mediums? I'm sorry, Heather, I'm always confused with those words.
Ceramics, cons, it's really messy, dirty, it's just mud and it's dusty. And there's a lot of different steps. So you might be excited to do a piece, but it's not ready for like a month and a half because it has to dry and then it has to go in the bisque and then you have to glaze it or paint it or whatever. and then it has to go in the kiln again. So it's not an immediate reward for all of your work. But it is cool to be able to do sculptural things and like 3D stuff. Textiles. I love textiles. Probably the cons are just stabbing myself in the fingers. Bleeding onto the
blood, sweat, and tears.
They're great to have naps under in the winter. Napping under a half sewn wall hanging.
Oh, I remember when you sent me a picture of like wool shroud from this like big warehouse that you discovered.
Oh yeah, that was insane. There was the hugest fabric store I've seen in my life. It was like the size of like 2 hockey arenas. With
Wow.
fabric to the ceiling.
Yeah. All the Inuit would be like, yeah.
Yeah, it was wild in there.
Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. Pros and cons. You got to talk about printmaking too.
About what?
Printmaking or visual other 2D work that you do. Pros and cons.
I don't know. 2D art is like maybe the easiest to do, but it's like, yeah, it's just like, oh, I'm gonna make a drawing, and then it's weird to be like, oh, that's art. That could just be it. No, I really like. I think printmaking is possibly my favorite. Not by much, but I really like it.
Is there any other kind of printmaking that you haven't done that you would like to explore?
I was just learning how to do lithograph before COVID made the school shut down. So I had like done my art on the stone, but hadn't got to the printing part. So it would have been cool to get there.
Maybe you could do a residency somewhere. Some beautiful place by lake. I don't know. Just dreaming something else.
I've heard that Oaxaca, Mexico has an amazing print community.
Oh, really? Oh, wow.
Yeah, like all artists down there.
Just go there and get exposed to their sense of color, and then your sense of color will just mix together. It's like, ooh. Yeah. Are there any other like mediums that you haven't used or haven't like sort of felt like you could use, but you would really want to try at some point?
I think it would be useful to be able to do Adobe, like Photoshop and Illustrator better. I can't use, like, I don't know how to use Photoshop right now, and I can use Illustrator just to make a vector file, but that would make my life easier. But that's not really like a want to learn kind of thing. It's just like, oh, I wish I knew how to do that.
Practical.
Yeah. I think it's like just more traditional stuff. Like I want to make polar bear pants.
Oh,
Yeah, like sealskin overalls.
Yeah.
And go hunting.
oh, I want to learn how to make those goose feet baskets.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah, those are just awesome. Another question from participant from Justin. Hi, Gayle. You have a really great social media presence. Has having a strong social media presence helped you in building your career as an artist?
Yes. 100%. It's been integral. It's kind of hard to keep up sometimes, and it's, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot more work than like you would think, just looking at somebody's like pretty pictures on the internet. But like, yeah, making things have a nice background and like remembering to take pictures of them. And then I usually alter the brightness or the contrast or the warmth and like crop things really nicely. So I put a lot of work into stuff, and sometimes even pre-plan and have basically a social media strategy. But helps. It does. Like, I've gotten so much work from having an online presence, and it's been like so important. Probably the most important thing that I've done so far.
You sometimes take a break and just be like, post like taking a social media break or something.
Yeah, but yeah, usually just for a week or something. Like, I'll just have had enough and don't really know what to put on, or like sometimes I'll have something really cool, like a picture to share, but I don't know what caption to do. So I'm just like, nah. Cool picture.
I personally really like the ones when you share pictures of the dog. I know that's not like the thing that sells the art, but I love the dog.
My number one assistant.
Yeah, she's awesome. Heather has another question. Do you have inspirations outside of your family and community, or even outside of Inuit culture?
I don't know. That's a big question. I think maybe like to go with that. Like, I want to do, I don't know how to put it, but like, I'm an artist and an Inuit artist, and I want to do like my projects, but I don't want anything to hold me back. So I don't necessarily, like, sometimes I feel like doing things more community oriented because it like feels really good and rewarding, but I don't want anything to hold me back. Like, I don't want to say no to a project because it's has nothing to do with like Inuit something. I don't know if that makes sense. It's tricky. It's like a weird delineation. I don't know if I'm making sense about it.
Yeah, it's always something that you have to navigate, right? It's like, I used to think about it like, you think you can get so far within your own community, and then like you have to break out of it. But like, I started thinking of it differently, more like your community is who supports you, and yes, of course you can go in all these different directions, and it's not like breaking anything. It's just, it's more of you. Okay, this happens all the time. I was going to ask something and then I started talking. I should have asked my question before I started talking. Oh yeah, so like, what kind of music do you listen to? Like, do you listen to music when you're working? Are there other artists that you like really, really admire, like regardless of what their background is? Like, what kinds of stuff do you really love and get you really excited about creative work, or just beauty, or
Yeah. I listen to a lot of pop, and it might seem weird, but pop country. Like Taylor Swift. And what I like, I don't know. I love looking at other people's artwork. But I don't really, like, I live in a city, but I don't really consider myself a city person. Like, I think I'm a nature person. So wherever I'm living, like, I'll go camping or hiking or whatever. And it's just like, if I'm, living in Ontario, now I do those things in Ontario. There's a whole bunch of new stuff to learn about like nature down here. So many spiders. What do I like? I think I love actually, yeah, I love Ningiokulu TV.
Yes. Oh yes.
When I was having my nervousness about like going in for the CAMA award, I was talking to a friend and I was like, what if there's somebody like Ningiokulu TV? And she was like, no, she's way too like big. She's like there's no way. And then the long list came out. I was like, oh my God.
Have you guys met?
No.
You have to meet.
Yeah.
She's so kind and shy and wonderful. And yes, she is a genius, total genius.
Yeah.
So you'd be in good company, the two of you hanging out. You should do a project together.
That was my mind. I love her.
But speaking of spiders, there's that one with the spider where the berries are spilled. That's one of my favorites.
I was just going to talk about that one.
Yeah, talk about it.
No, just like speaking of spiders and
Yeah.
terrified Inuks.
Yeah. She said that was actually like, it was a depiction of what she did because she was picking berries and then she saw it and she dropped the berries because like, oh.
What is that? Art and life quote? Art depicts life or art mimics life. I don't know. I'm good at those quotes.
I know you said it was a bit of a secret what you're working on next, but is there anything else that you're working on that you can actually tell us about?
Yes. There's a new Uniqlo store opening at the Rideau Center tomorrow, and they have a print on demand machine that you can go and like buy a t-shirt or something and then like put it through this thing and select a design. They're going to have one of my designs available. So that's fun.
Wow. I love that. That's awesome.
Yeah, super fun. And yeah, I'm really excited for my big project. And
So like we can watch your Instagram to figure out, we'll get news from watching Instagram, right?
Yeah.
Do that. I'm excited to see what it is.
yeah.
You should have your Instagram handle somewhere, but did you want to tell us what it is while we're here?
Yeah, it's Uyagaqi. So Uyagaqi.
Excellent. And because this is the Kenojuak Ashevak Memorial Award, how do you think the award is going to impact your career?
It's already probably done wonders. I'm really excited about the exhibition at the Winnipeg Art Gallery because it's only my 4th show ever. And I've never had artwork in Manitoba before. So I was really excited about that. Yeah, and just like exposure, like the professionality. Yeah, I think it's been great already and couldn't be happier. I saw Uyagaqi had a question about my favorite color in life and to work with.
Oh, there is this question. Yeah.
I really like the contrast of black and white, just because I think it's the most contrast that you can get. But color-wise, probably red and orange. Red, probably for the same reasons of black and white. It's just like a big statement. And then I just got into orange a few years ago, and I don't know why, just gorgeous. I think I like autumn colors.
I had
one thing that I had asked Billy the last time that I wanted to ask you as well about. I'm not sure if you know that we had an all Inuit peer assessment committee that went through all of the applications for CAMA. How does it feel knowing that it was you were chosen by your peers?
That feels great. It feels like that's how it should be for an Inuit Art Award. But also it's very like I feel accepted, and I feel like my own people value what I'm doing, so that is the best like positive feedback that I've gotten. And I think also like getting into doing art, I was worried about like who I was representing, like the art that I was making wasn't like that I could make isn't really what I had seen before, because like my mom is from the South and I grew up in the South, and I wasn't like what I had seen Inuit art was in the past. So I was really careful about representing myself for who I am, like biracial, and didn't grow up in the North. So that was really, I don't know if that was holding me back, but I was just like hesitant about getting into art because of those reasons. So it's incredible to be sitting here, being who I am and being accepted for exactly who I am.
I'm so proud of you. Well, thank you everybody for listening and for participating and for asking the good questions. Thank you, Gayle.
Thank you, Taaqtumi.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you both so much. This has been amazing. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next two talks as well, but it's just such a treat to be able to have so many talented Inuit artists coming to chat with us over the month of June. We have next Thursday, it's going to be Kabloona, so same day, same time, so Thursday. Then June 22nd, we have Maureen, and June 29th, we have Inuk that we were just talking about. So you're in very good company. And here's hoping that you guys get to chat with each other at some point and learn and laugh together. This has been a real treat. Thank you so much, Nakumik, and thank you everyone for tuning in this evening as well.
Thank you.